Welcome to the weekly ITNet Tech Update. Secure system of the people, by the people, and for the people will not perish from zero-day attacks. That's right. Today, we'll be discussing recent news about zero-day attacks, what a zero-day attack is, and I'll also be explaining why I'm dressed up as Abraham Lincoln. Stay tuned. Hello, I'm Michael Kinnett, CEO and founder of Eternal Networks. And every Friday at 1 p.m. on our Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and my personal LinkedIn, I go live to discuss the latest tech and cybersecurity news that might affect you and your business. At the end of our live session, I'll also be answering questions from the audience. So if you have any tech or cybersecurity related questions, please get them ready. I'll make sure to have time at the end to cover those. First off, why am I dressed as Abraham Lincoln? Let me take a little bit of time to explain this. Monday, as you probably know, is President's Day. President's Day was created to celebrate the amazing presidents of the United States that we've had in the past, and is when it is because it's between Abraham Lincoln's birthday, which is February 12th, and George Washington's birthday, which is later. And this is the fourth or fifth time I've done this, but I've dressed up as Abraham Lincoln, as you can see here, and gone to my children's elementary school and impersonated Lincoln and talked to the kids about a little bit about Abraham Lincoln and what he did and the amazing man that he was. I'm 6'4", as Abraham Lincoln was also 6'4", and my wife found this lovely hat to make me even taller, just as Abraham Lincoln. So I usually go to their classroom, read a book about Abraham Lincoln and his hat, answer the kids' questions, shake their hands, and spend some time talking to them about the importance of getting an education. Abraham Lincoln did not have the privileges of education that many of us do here in the great United States. And so I always encourage the kids to keep reading, keep learning and growing, and who knows, maybe one of them will be a president down the road. So with that being said, I'm going to take my hat off here. It's not as comfortable as it looks, if it even looks comfortable. For the news, I want to talk a little bit about the news. There's two news articles, headlines that I wanted to point out. One of those, there's a massive DDoS attack. I've talked about these in the past. Google successfully thwarted a DDoS attack that hit 56 million requests per second, which is phenomenal with the amount of traffic that is. Well, Cloudflare just blocked one or mitigated against one. They hit a record high 71 million requests a second. So pretty high. I don't want to go too deep into the details on that, but just know that DDoS attacks without the proper tools in place to protect and mitigate against them, like Cloudflare, can take down a network very quickly. All right, the one news headline that I do want to spend a little bit of time on: a ransomware gang out of Russia used the new zero-day to steal data on 1 million patient records. You did hear that right, 1 million records. Community Health Systems, also known as CHS, they're one of the largest healthcare providers in the United States, with close to 80 hospitals in 16 states. They confirmed this week that criminal hackers accessed the personal and protected health information of up to 1 million patients. So they haven't disclosed the exact nature and details of what was accessed, but they did say personal and protected health information. So this is huge. That means medical records is essentially what that translates to. The data breach stemmed from their use of Go Anywhere MFT software that had a zero-day vulnerability. And I'll talk a little bit more about what zero-day vulnerability means in just a few minutes. CLOP, they're the Russian-based hacker group, and they stated that they accessed over 100 different companies with this zero-day. And so while CHS was very quick to come out and say that they were breached, expect to hear more about this in coming days as more companies that were exposed through this zero-day announce their breaches as well. So that leads me to our discussion for the day. What is a zero-day? What is a zero-day attack? So let's start off talking about what a zero-day attack is. So a zero-day attack occurs when criminal hackers take advantage of a software or network vulnerability that developers don't know about. That's what a zero day is, right? It's a vulnerability that the developer of that system does not know about. Think of it as like having a broken front door, but you don't know that it's broken. Until you fix it, wrongdoers could just walk into your house without your knowledge. So the name zero day derives from the fact that developers are completely unaware of the weak point until after the attack occurs. And that's a quote from Kristen Bullock. She's founder of Security Nerd. She also says that they've known about the vulnerability for 0 days, right? So it's a brand new 0 day, just came out, right? Unknown until it's been exposed through criminals. And well, I shouldn't say criminals. Sometimes you may hear about a 0 day that is not being exploited in the wild, right? By these criminal organizations. There are times where white hat hackers will identify 0 days and will notify the company saying, hey, here's a vulnerability that you need to fix. And they can work on fixing that prior to it actually being exploited. But most of the time you hear about it when it's a 0 day attack. The Cybersecurity Ventures company, they predict that 0 day attacks are going to continue to rise from 1 week, 1 per week to 1 per day, largely due to the expanding use of technology. So the more code that there is in the world, the more opportunities there are to find weak spots. So if you think about that, like how many programs did you use 10 years ago versus today, right? I know my business uses way more programs and different applications from different vendors today than we did 10 years ago. So 0 day attacks tend to be more serious than other type of cybersecurity breaches because they're unknown until it happens, right? And there's big money for these criminals to be made in selling the secrets of an exploit. Hackers sold code for a Zoom exploit for $500,000. That's a lot of money. Dan L. Dodson, he's the CEO of Fortified Health Security. He finds that the real question is not who is most vulnerable to 0 day attacks, but who are the most valuable targets. That's what these criminals are going to be thinking about, right? So you may wonder, like, well, what can I do to protect myself or recover from a 0 day or do this, right? Well, the only way to really recover and protect yourself is to patch it as soon as the issue is patched by the vendor that's providing that software, the developer. Patches are the only way to recover and fix the issue. So what that means is until you've patched, you have that vulnerability. That vulnerability exists and you are exposed to the risk of these criminals being able to gain access to your systems. However, patching, it's a lot of times it's a very manual process, right? And the only way to know that you need to patch is for somebody to come out and say, hey, there's a 0 day and here's the patch. There's no way of doing it ahead of time. There's no way of knowing about it. It's the hence of 0 day, zero knowledge of that until it's been exposed. And so that's one of the reasons why they say that 0 days are one of the most dangerous risks, because there really is nothing you can do to fix it until that developer comes out with a patch or until they come out with a workaround, right? There have been 0 days in the last year with Microsoft where they've said, hey, we have a 0 day for Microsoft Exchange. We're aware of it. We're working on it. We don't have a fix. However, if you do these 4 steps, you can prevent the criminals from gaining access to that 0 day vulnerability until we can fix it. So sometimes, the developers and software vendors can come up with a workaround to protect or to help mitigate against that risk until that patch is available. But step one is always, in stopping a 0 day, is always finding it in the first place, right? There's no foolproof system because they can come in many different forms. But what you can do is you can implement policies and procedures in your organization to routinely run updates and have plans in place to make sure that as soon as patches are available, you have a method for deploying these, right? Have a defense in-depth approach that layers multiple types of security measures in place that can help to detect and mitigate against these 0 day attacks. Now, while the only way to fix and patch the full risk, is waiting for the developer to come out with a patch, you can have systems in place to detect and help mitigate against some of what can come from a zero-day attack, right? So, but I'm trying to think. I don't want to get too technical here on it. Let's just say, if back to the open door scenario, right? So if your door is open and anybody can come in, but you have a guard dog sitting in front of the door, it doesn't matter if the criminal can get in, right? That guard dog can then attack and lock down and potentially prevent any further damage. That doesn't mean that the guard dog is going to prevent them from getting in, but the guard dog might be able to help, minimize the damage that's done. And so there are security programs and other methods that can be done to help to detect and prevent further damage from that access. The lengthy time to create a patch is part of the reason why it's important to have a response in place as well, right? So that you're not scrambling in the moment, right? The key to recover from any attack, regardless of the impact, whether the guard dog was there or not, right, is to have clearly defined and well-rehearsed incident response procedures, right? You need to know what you're going to do when it happens, so that when it happens, you're not running around like crazy, wondering if the sky's falling, and I don't know what to do. So make sure you have an incident response plan and procedures in place that you practice ahead of time, so that when a zero-day happens or something like that, you already know what to do. So prevention for zero-day attacks, right? I've already talked about how difficult that is. It really relies largely on the developers of these programs to follow best practices and stop all types of attacks before they start, right? So the developers of these programs should be performing penetration tests. They should be offering bug bounties, right? A bug bounty is essentially a bounty that's offered to good hackers, right, who identify and alert them of vulnerabilities. And some companies are really good at this, at offering these bounties, right? They want to say, look, we're going to give you tens of thousands of dollars if you find a bug and notify us of it so that we can fix it. Because in the long run, that's going to be so much easier and better for them than if a criminal finds that bug first. So I don't have any examples here, but there are companies that have done that. If you do a quick Google search of bug bounty, you can find some of those examples. So those are the good organizations, right? These good developers that have these processes and procedures to try to find and locate and mitigate those prior to them becoming a zero-day, right? They want no 0 days, because the 0 day gets them in the news, and it's a bad kind of news. So some other examples of known prevention strategy, right? Google has something they call Project Zero. It's a team of security analysts that are tasked with finding 0-day vulnerabilities, right? So that's their sole job, is to go out and try to find these 0 days. And sometimes it's in Google products, sometimes it's in other products, right? And they notify those other organizations. 0-Day Initiative is another one. They're an organization devoted to rewarding researchers who identify vulnerabilities, and they pass the information along to the affected vendors so that it can be fixed quietly and proactively before criminals find out. So it's important to be aware of it, right? There's, 0 days may sound all scary and crazy and stuff, but there are things that can be done to help prevent, right? You have to, I've talked about this before, it all starts with documentation. You have to know where your data is, what has access to it, who has access to it. You need to do a full assessment. You really need to understand the ins and outs of what has access to what, when, where, and how, so that you can mitigate against those risks, right? You can evaluate and determine what the risk factor is, and you can work on implementing steps to prevent that damage moving forward. So I do want to talk a little bit about our webinar coming up next month. We had a webinar yesterday. For those of you that missed it, it was great. You can go to our website and register for the replay. We talked about risk management. So we've been talking about 0-day. That's a risk. We had Chris Day, who's the CEO and founder of A1 Enterprise. He's an enterprise risk management guy, been doing it for 20 plus years. Had some great insights and went through the steps that you should be evaluating on risk management, right? Not just for IT, but for all types of risk, right? Every business has risk, and it's important you identify that risk. And he had a very nice outlined steps and went through what those steps look like but it starts out with identifying it, right? You have to identify your assets, you have to prioritize the assets, and then identify the risks and opportunities. We talked a little bit about that as well, but primarily the risks associated with that, right? Where are you most vulnerable, right? And what we've been talking about today with the 0 days, right? That's a risk. So identifying where the data is, where your systems are, where the risk is, what the vulnerability level is, and then you can make a plan, right? You can't really make a plan until you have that in place. So I highly recommend going and watching that. It was a great conversation we had with Chris about risk management. Next month, we're going to be talking about backup and disaster recovery. World Backup Day is on March 31st. So in honor of that day, we're going to be discussing backup for your business. We're going to be talking about it all month on the live stream and other stuff. But on March 16th, we're going to have our live webinar. We'll be joined by James Robison from Datto to discuss the latest in SaaS data backup and protection. So hopefully you can register and join us for that webinar. I've actually gone a little bit longer than normal today. This 0 day attack got me a little bit excited and talked about it. You can do a quick Google. I think I saw somebody post a question. I'm looking through my thing here about largest 0 day attacks. You can do a quick Google search and find out more about those. I don't have any off the top of my head. I will say though that this 0 day attack here that I mentioned at the beginning is probably going to be one of the larger ones. With 1 million patient data records and other stuff. And that's only scratching the surface, right? In the days and weeks to come, we're going to be hearing more and more about this. And I think it's going to become a top headline for the coming weeks. So keep an eye on that. I'll try to share more on my live stream next week if I have any updates on that. I don't see other questions or comments, but if you do have any questions, comments that come up watching this later after the fact, you can always reach out to me through direct message or contact us on our website at ITNet.works. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful President's Day on Monday. Happy birthday, President Lincoln and President Washington and all the rest. And we'll talk to you next week. Thanks.